We go into the black hole, what happens? Not much happens. We could still have a conversation like this. The singularity of the black hole is not the middle of it. It is not a place. When we jump into the black hole, we get stretched out, and the moment that the space disappears, we disappear. All of our atoms, gone. The singularity in Einstein's theory is a moment in time, and it is the moment when things stop existing. That space is fabricated from something more fundamental. From our perspective, we are in the black hole, for which it is possible that there is another universe through a black hole.
Jeff Forshaw is a renowned theoretical physicist and a popular science communicator. Forshaw is well known for his collaboration with physicist Brian Cox, with whom he co-authored several acclaimed books. Forshaw's work explores fundamental questions about the nature of space, time, and the universe.
Great pleasure having you here. Thank you very much for your time. And my first question about your book. Why you call your book The Key to Understand the Universe, Black Hole?
So I'm very glad that you asked that question. We discussed whether to have the subtitle as The Key to Understanding Everything. We thought maybe that was too much. So we came back a little bit and had The Key to Understanding the Universe. But the whole of the book really is to try to explain why that is not an outrageous statement. Why it can be that through understanding black holes, we really can learn something very, very fundamental about the universe. So it's to capture that idea that black holes, they're not just interesting astronomical objects that are kind of fun to look at and talk about. Understanding them really represents a major challenge. In fact, it's a unique challenge in physics. And if we can understand black holes, we will have made very fundamental progress in understanding essentially how space and time operate. That's what's at stake.
When we were interviewing Sir Roger Penrose, we talk a lot about the black hole. And he answered that I just proved that the singularity exists, but have no idea how prove that singularity is hidden behind the horizon of events.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue with Roger Penrose on that, right? The fact that singularities, there are no naked singularities in the universe, is a conjecture, I understand, which is what Penrose was saying there. This book is, in large part, you said that he didn't deserve the. This book is about the work and the brilliance of Roger Penrose and also the work of Stephen Hawking. So although it's about black holes, the people who made the most impact, certainly in the early days, were Hawking and Penrose, and we talk about their work in this book.
Could the black hole store the information? Is the information inside the black hole?
If you jumped into a black hole, which you could do, I mean, in fact, the process of falling into a black hole is not by itself a very remarkable thing, or it need not be. For example, for a large black hole, we could be falling into one right now, in this room, without knowing it. Nothing would feel different as we enter into this black hole. So, what was the question again? So
if the information can be stored inside the black hole.
Yeah, well, there's some information that's gone inside the black hole. If you imagine that we are falling into this black hole now, then, I think what we need to explain first is that the black hole has a kind of edge to it. There is a kind of inside and outside of a black hole, which is the horizon of the black hole, okay? So things that go inside the horizon can't get back out again. This is, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, this is, of course, going to get very interesting if we keep talking, that things that go into a black hole can never get back out. So if we did fall into a black hole now, if we were falling in, we would have no prospect of being able to get back out again. This is the significance of the horizon of a black hole. But of course, there is no information inside the black hole. From our perspective, we are in the black hole. The situation is very different as observed by somebody watching us go into the black hole, though.
The information lost in black holes suggests that the time is the illusion.
We can talk about it, what happens if we, so we've gone into this black hole, right? There is, what happens to us? We go into the black hole, what happens? Right? Well, at first, if it's a big black hole, at first, not much happens. We could still have our conversation like this. But if we would be jumping into the black hole, which has been photographed now in the galaxy M87, it's a very large black hole, it's millions of solar masses. If we went in there, we'd have about 1 day before we met our demise. And our demise would be that we would be stretched out as we fall in. So this room would become stretched, and the walls would get narrowed, the room would be stretched, we would be pulled apart. Eventually, we would be literally pulled apart by the tidal effect of the black hole.
Why does the scale of black hole determine what will happen?
Well, this is so the more massive a black hole, the bigger it is, the smaller the gravity it's maybe slightly counterintuitive, the smaller the gravity at the horizon. So a small black hole, we could imagine making a black hole about the same mass as the Earth. We could only imagine it because as far as we can tell, they don't exist in nature, these little ones. So this would be a black hole about the size of the Earth. You could make that if you could squash the Earth into about the size of a pebble. You make the Earth this big. If you could scrunch the Earth down like that, then the gravity close, just outside of this little pebble, would be immensely strong. You would be completely flattened by the strength of the gravitational field if you were close to such a black hole. But not the case for a very huge supermassive black hole. So this is just the way of this is Einstein's general theory of relativity that predicts these properties and talks about black holes. This is where we understand, this is where the prediction that black holes should exist came from. We're talking about I want to talk about the information that we've gone into the black hole, we get stretched out, and the punchline there is that we disappear.
How the matter can disappear?
Yes, so this is the big question, right? So what happens is that this is what we're talking about now is the singularity of the black hole. The singularity of the black hole is not the middle of it. It is not a place. The singularity of the black hole is when we jump into the black hole, we get stretched out. The space is being stretched, to nothing, in fact. And the moment that the space disappears, we disappear. All of our atoms gone. It's a complete erasure of information in that sense.
But the last research regarding black hole lead to the conclusion that information can back.
Yes. This is the interesting thing. So I am describing what happens inside of a black hole from the perspective of Einstein's theory of gravity. In Einstein's theory of gravity, there is a singularity. The singularity is an end in time for anything that falls into the black hole. So we would cease to exist in a very fundamental sense in Einstein's theory. That's to say, it's not like our atoms have been destroyed, like in some kind of, but they've gone somewhere. They simply cease to exist. The singularity in Einstein's theory is a moment in time, and it is the moment when things stop existing. From outside the black hole, we need to appreciate, there's a very important point that we need to appreciate, in that time in Einstein's theory is not absolute. So time can end.
It's illusion? There's time's illusion?
No, it's not an illusion. It's very much an important idea, an important thing, but it can end for me and you if we were jumping in the black hole, but it would still be ticking for people outside the black hole or for other creatures that are falling in the black hole.
But at the deepest level of the universe, there is no time, there is no space.
Possibly. And the latest we talk about that in the book. The idea in particular that space is engineered in some sense, or maybe engineered.
What is behind the time?
So time is a little bit different. So time we can think of as, when we think what we really need from time, it's that something causes something else. That's an important idea. So for example, my death must follow my birth, right? In the sense that and my entire life in between is joined up by a series of things that happen. So I'm deliberately not using time at all. I'm just saying something happened, and then something, and that caused something else, and that caused something else. So the idea that the universe is populated by things that happen with a causal relationship to each other, that can be that way. One can talk about the universe in those terms, and then time is not seen to be central to the picture. What really matters is the causal relationship between cause and effect. Is basically the really important idea. Space is a little bit different. The idea that space maybe doesn't exist. Right? Well, I mean, space is the thing that I'm waving my hands around in now, right? So the idea that might be made from something almost doesn't make sense. It requires us, for example, if space is built from something, it means some things must exist that don't live in space. So we have to imagine that there can be things that exist that interact with each other, but there is no sense in which they live in space. So this is the most recent research in black holes physics is pointing in the direction that space is fabricated from something more fundamental. And so we might think here's thing number one, thing number two, thing number three, thing number four. These things exist. In fact, I'm putting them here, and you're thinking of them as being this thing is here, as though they're located.
And they are existing only when we look at, and we exist regarding to the orthodox quantum mechanics. They exist just only when we look at this.
No, it's not. That's not. I'm talking about an idea which is not proven at this stage.
Okay.
Right. But I'm trying to explain how it can be that space itself can be fabricated from something else, and that the thing that it's made from doesn't live in space. Because if space is being built from it, of course, it needs to exist outside of it. So we might have a network of things, right, that interact with each other by some rules. This is what physics is all about. It's about describing the rules that determine how things interact with each other. So I've got a bunch of things, they interact with each other. There is in no sense that I can talk about the distance between two of those things, because that makes no sense, because there's no distance, they don't exist in space. But the effect of these things, as perceived by us, is space. We experience space. I am a certain distance away from you. We think about things in terms of how far things are away from other things. This is really fundamental to our idea of what space is. And the suggestion is that is a consequence of something more elemental, more fundamental. And that's really where black hole, probably for me the most exciting direction that black hole research is going in now.
Do you agree that we don't know the true nature of the time and space? We don't know
yes, for sure. Yeah, I think that see, time and space. So Einstein's theory of general relativity talks about space. It's a surprising theory in that I think I've already the idea that time should be universal is intuitive. The idea that there's a kind of giant cosmic clock that ticks, and that space is some kind of fixed arena in which we move around. This is kind of an intuitive way to think about what space and time are. But both of those are wrong, and Einstein was the person who appreciated that. He was the first person to properly appreciate that time and space are subjective things. And so space is malleable, it can be distorted, and it's distorted by the presence of energy and mass. So the Earth distorts the spaces in its vicinity we experience that distortion as a gravitational force, but it's better understood as a distortion in space, which is, and likewise with time. So these ideas that space and time are not as simple as we might think come from Einstein, and now we're moving into the direction that maybe even this Einstein picture is an oversimplification, and that there's something even deeper than that. And that's, yeah, I think that's very exciting. So the idea that they're not fundamental things.
Could a black hole be gateway to something? To another universe, another space?
There are two answers to that. There's a practical answer.
Yeah or no?
No, practically, right?
Okay.
Right. So that's to say that all of the black holes that we know about in the universe, they come from collapsing stars. That's the way to make a black hole is to get a star, a big one, a few solar masses, so bigger than our sun, but not much bigger. 5 times bigger would be enough, right? And just wait a few billion years until it runs out of fuel. That star will then collapse in under its own gravity, and it will continue to collapse and collapse and collapse and collapse and collapse. Nothing stops it. Nothing stops it from collapsing. So it collapses right in on itself.
Disappear, fully disappear.
Yeah. Right. Those kinds of black holes do not offer the opportunity to, they can't act as portals to another universe. Right. But black holes, we can write down mathematical equations describing black holes for which it is possible that there is another universe through a black hole. Basically, the star that collapsed blocks up the black hole, right? There is no other side. No, if you jump into a black hole, right? What you will see is the collapsing star. Like if you kind of jump in behind a collapsing star, right? The collapsing star will be way down below you, shrinking away. It'll be pulled apart by this spaghettification that I was talking about, and but this star will be there. This collapsing ball of matter is collapsing and receding from you. And you say, there it is. There's the thing that created the black hole. You can see it. Well, I mean, it's maybe a very long way away, so you may not actually be able to see it. But it is there, and it is like the space stretches out, the planet gets stretched out, and then the end, right? In this way that I was talking about, the singularity is the end, right? There's no way to get through to another universe, but it is possible in the mathematics to have a situation where there is a universe and another universe, and they're connected by a black hole. I'm drawing a little picture with my hands.
Or another universe.
Yeah. Well, it would be a universe that it would actually be, in Einstein's theory, it would be connected, spatially connected.
Creating multi-universes reality.
Such configurations of space don't exist in the world in which we inhabit, because all of the black holes that we know about are created by dead stars which block up any option to get through to another. There is no other side. There is no other universe to go to.
Language development has not kept out development of knowledge about a black hole, I think. There is no language that can describe what's happened.
Let me describe a spinning. So there's a beautiful piece of work by Roy Kerr, who was the first person to calculate what happens outside of a spinning black hole. And everything is fine. And then his equations also can be used to describe inside the black hole. And the inside of the black hole in a spinning black hole has a singularity that you can kind of jump through. It's like a ring. So the mathematics allows, just using Einstein's understanding of physics, for a person to jump through the singularity and pop out into an infinite universe on the other side. And in that universe, in Kerr's universe, there is the option to have you appear in the other universe, and there is another singularity that you can jump through, pop through it into another universe. Each universe is infinitely big and sits inside the other universe.
Black hole
it's a completely crazy
it's
configuration.
Crazy. Black hole creates its own mathematical structures.
This is Einstein presents some equations, right? They're called the Einstein equations of general relativity. And in fact, they were solved. He wrote them down in 1915. And within a few months, the black hole solution had been calculated by Karl Schwarzschild, who was actually a soldier and he was a scientist, but he was at that time working on the Eastern Front in the war. And he actually solved Einstein's equations and got the black hole solution within months of Einstein writing his equations down. So though the Schwarzschild solution to for the black hole is a mathematical consequence of the Einstein equations. And this is how we do theoretical physics. We start from the equations which are supposed to describe the world, and we calculate the consequences. And one of the calculations in the case of Roy Kerr's solution is this infinite tower of nested universes, right? But his solution is a solution that, as far as we can tell, does not apply to the world in which we live. Our world we should be solving Einstein's equations in the case that the black hole has been formed as a consequence of a star collapsing. And then, then we don't get Roy Kerr's tower, right? But it really it gets us thinking, once we learn about the Kerr solution, it really makes us think about, the possibilities in the way the world works, because it's so fantastical that even the most crazy kind of science fiction writer wouldn't really come up with this. But yet this is a perfectly consistent, this universe inside a universe inside a universe. It's a perfectly mathematically consistent solution to Einstein's equation.